From Good Morning Britain, racism towards nurses has hit a crisis point in the UK. That's the stark warning from the nursing and midwifery regulator. It comes as reports from the Nurses Union finds that incidents of racism have increased by 55% in the last 3 years. But with many too scared to speak up, they say the number of cases could be far higher. Yes, it seems like it's race card week this week, isn't it? 3 days of whinging because Sarah Potchett said something factually accurate. And now we get, apparently the big problem in the NHS is people being racist to the nurses. Also, what do you mean, too scared to speak up? Is there anybody here watching this video who's been for a walk or watched social media in the last 10 years and has got the impression that people are a little bit afraid to play the race card in the UK? In fact, in anywhere in the world. Isn't it the first thing they go for every single time? The second one of them's behaving badly and they get challenged on the behaviour. Isn't that their instant go-to excuse for acting like a knobhead in public? Seems like they're not really afraid of that, does it? That's like saying Jordan's afraid of getting the tits out in public. Anyway, I'll show you the video. It's a big story they're playing with today. One of them Labour degenerates is all over it, talking absolute nonsense as usual. I'm going to mock him for his smooth-brained take, and then I'm going to show you numerous pieces of evidence that suggest the big problem in the NHS these days isn't possibly some people, rude people, I'm not promoting it, being rude to the nurses. No, the real problem is 20 million random arseholes who've never paid a penny into the system constantly using it. Right, before we get to the most smooth-brained of takes, let's at least watch 60 seconds of this drivel from Good. Of course he did. Of course he did. Right, 1,000 cases a year. First things first, do the numbers. 1,000 cases a year. There's probably 1,000 cases a year of unexplained wanking injuries in the NHS. So I don't think it's that big of a problem. Only a nation as brain dead as the UK can have the Prime Minister involved because 1,000 people a year are getting called names, allegedly, because some of those insults, by the way, fiction. Fiction. Why would an old English bloke call a nurse a slave when he knows they're getting paid by him? You're not a slave if you're getting paid, are you? That's the worst insult ever. If she said some fat chav in Borough got all aggressive and started calling me a Zulu or something, then I'd understand that. But it just doesn't track the bollocks they're coming out with. So first of all, half of them are going to be making it up to try and get brownie points, because that's the way it works. Yeah, if they're getting performance managed or they're not doing a good job, they'll go, oh, yeah, well, people are racist. Checkmate, loser. I'll have another raise, thanks. So first of all, I mean, it's a non-story. 1,000 people getting called names every year. Get to the back of the queue. I mean, we all get called names. It's ludicrous that people being slightly impolite to 1,000 nurses a year warrants a TV investigation and a statement from the Prime Minister. It's absolutely mental on the face of it. Again, it's not very many, is it? It's less than 0.1% of people that use the NHS because it's quite busy. This is a non-story. They might as well ask for the Prime Minister's comments on people that have to go to hospital because they've got a small rodent crawling around in the ring piece. Although, knowing Keir Starmer... Ha! Gay! That's probably a subject he'd be quite good to give you a very thorough and knowledgeable response on. Best of all is the smooth-brained response from Nazir Afzal. Immigration is not the reason you may struggle to get a doctor's appointment. Oh, really? Oh, really? Immigration is the only reason you can get a doctor's appointment. Yeah, makes loads of sense. We depend on them, leaving their families abroad and doing double shifts to fill the gap. Look how we treat them. That is such a brain-dead and demonstrably wrong response. Before I get to the serious one, let's start with the unserious one. Immigration helps the NHS. Yeah, that was my response. Oh, look, 52 likes. That's pretty good. And I know this is over-egging the pudding, but I can't help it. There might still be at least like 2 people out there on planet Earth who think that the NHS really does need, nay, depend on foreigners working for it, even though we had an NHS in 1965 and 75 and 85 and 95 that wasn't predominantly staffed by immigrants and worked perfectly fine. In fact, dare I say, with my memory of a fat ginger doctor turning up in my front room 3 hours after my mum rang him when I was 8 in 1987, dare I say it worked slightly better back then. No, you don't think that? All right, let's do the numbers then. So this brain-dead Labour shill defender of foreign kiddie fiddlers, he thinks the only reason you can get a doctor's appointment is because of foreigners. David Atherton points out the obvious. The real reason you can't get an appointment, an operation, and why your taxes are so high is, of course, because the NHS is overwhelmed with illegal immigrants. And legal ones, David. Don't forget them. My partner is a clinic outpatient nurse in the NHS. On an average day, half of the patients on the list will be illegal immigrants. And I'm sure you all remember this old chestnut.
Doctors, dentists, the facilities we have. We're already fairly stretched, I feel, in the area. Is that going to be something?
So my understanding is the contract with Joe Doc, which I think is sort of 9 times it's a private doctor's system. Am I understanding that? It's not a statement. But that should mean they won't be putting weight on our local
the local surgeries or the local doctors.
That's crazy. We're on 3 years waiting list at the hospital and we're finding out that our service that's given to taxpayers in the UK isn't good enough. And then it's happened. Are they really seriously on the
again, well, let's find out. I think it's important. Is it a burden on us? Is the council paying for that? I know the council are getting some funding to support this. I know it's inadequate.
That one's brilliant, not just for the outrage of the general public, but the genuine stupidity of Terry Quit, the politician there. Rupert Lowe gave us some even better numbers. This is simply staggering. I have verified the source of this information as reliable from a GP practice in London. On a daily average, just 8% of the appointments are used by British citizens. 51% of them require an interpreter at the taxpayer's expense, also in effect taking a double appointment, and 72% of all sick notes are issued to patients who do not speak English. 92% of appointments at this practice are being taken by foreign nationals, with over half requiring interpretations. And let's be honest, it's London. Of the 8% that aren't foreign nationals, 4% of them, well, the parents were, weren't they? Gavin Rice, the man ahead of me in the NHS hospital clinic, cannot understand the question date of birth. I'm standing behind him while he calls someone who can speak English. The receptionist has poor English too. This is absolutely insane. Yeah, well, don't believe your own eyes and ears, Gavin. Listen to what a brain-dead left-wing activist tells you instead. And you've all seen videos like this, the average NHS waiting room. Well, hang on, back up a bit there. That's Kababu, isn't it? I'm certain that's Kababu. I thought we'd sent him to Ethiopia. And Kira Connolly made a post saying at one stage in the waiting room she was in, there was 4 different nationalities speaking in their own native tongues, and one person was kicking up a stink. And before that, she was talking about how in Ireland they have Jippo-only clinics, where they'll only see you, specifically if you're of the Roma community, protected applicants and undocumented migrants only. And finally, for the pedants among you who insist on numbers in black and white because your own eyes and ears, well, that's just not good enough evidence for you. I asked a left-wing Google AI for some numbers. What percentage of NHS staff are immigrants? Well, it's approximately 1 in 5, Mr. Bootneck. Oh, really? 1 in 5? Up from only 9% in 2009, when we still had some remote modicum of sensible migration control going on? Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? OK, and what percentage of the UK were born abroad? Make a best guess, including illegals. Well, assuming a UK population of roughly 67 million, I reckon foreign-born is probably about 18%. OK, now add UK-born children who have foreign-born parents, often referred to as second-generation migrants. And the number then gives us 23% of the UK's population. So you know what this tells me? This tells me that do the maths. 20% NHS staff are foreign, 23% of the people using it are foreign. Lo and behold, even with left-wing numbers, therefore, foreigners are a net drain on the NHS. Game, set and match. And let's be honest, those numbers from Google are well low. There's no way it's only 23% of the population. Anybody that's ever walked down a high street in a British city knows this to be true. Oh yeah, and the cherry on top, NHS aren't producers. They don't create any wealth. They're not private industry. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not go-getters who generate wealth. They are on the taxpayer's tit. So of the 20% of the NHS staff who are born abroad or of foreign extraction, large amounts of that taxpayer's money are going to be sent abroad. And, well, there's no good argument you can make at all to tell me that the number one reason the NHS is completely knackered is because of mass migration of people. All right, that was a piece of piss. Easy. So therefore, I think I can sum up by going back to Mr. Afzal's page and saying, sorry, Nazir, you earned that, mate. You earned that, you absolute throbber. All right, that's me for the day, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to take umbrage with those numbers or, you know, your own eyeballs, please have a pop in the comments down below. I love arguing with knobheads. All right, see you all tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Toodle pip. Cheers.